An EMP, electromagnetic pulse, is a sudden burst of electromagnetic radiation that can occur naturally, such as from a solar storm, or as a result of a human-made nuclear explosion. If an EMP were to hit your city, it could potentially cause widespread damage to electronic devices, including VHF and HF radios. VHF, very high frequency, and HF, high frequency, radios rely on electronic components to function, and these components could be damaged or destroyed by an EMP. The exact impact of an EMP on communications equipment would depend on the strength and proximity of the EMP, as well as the specific equipment and its level of protection. To protect your radios and equipment from the effects of an EMP, you can take some measures such as: keep your radios and other electronic devices in a Faraday cage. A Faraday cage is an enclosure made of conductive material that can shield electronic devices from electromagnetic radiation. You can create a Faraday cage using materials such as metal boxes, wire mesh, or aluminum foil. Unplug your equipment from the power source and disconnect any antennas. An EMP can induce high voltage in electrical lines and antennas, so unplugging your equipment and disconnecting antennas can protect them from damage. Invest in equipment designed to withstand EMPs. Some manufacturers offer radios and other electronic devices that are specifically designed to resist EMP damage. These devices may have extra shielding or protective features. Have a backup plan. In the event of an EMP, you may not be able to rely on electronic communications. It's important to have alternative methods of communication, such as a portable radio with a hand-cranked generator or a satellite phone. An EMP can potentially cause damage to VHF and HF radios and other electronic devices. To protect your equipment, you can take measures such as storing them in a Faraday cage, unplugging them from power sources and antennas, investing in equipment designed to withstand EMPs, and having a backup plan for communication. There have been a few historical examples of EMPs, both naturally occurring and human-made. Carrington Event, 1859. This was a massive solar storm that hit Earth in September 1859, which caused widespread damage to telegraph systems around the world. The storm generated a powerful EMP that induced electrical currents in the telegraph lines, causing them to short-circuit and in some cases catch fire. Starfish Prime, 1962. This was a nuclear test conducted by the United States in the Pacific Ocean, which produced an intense EMP that damaged electronics in Hawaii, which was approximately 900 miles away from the explosion. The test was intended to study the effects of a nuclear EMP on military equipment and infrastructure. Soviet Nuclear Test, 1972. In 1972, the Soviet Union conducted a nuclear test at an altitude of 290 kilometers, 180 miles, which produced an EMP that disrupted power grids and communication systems in Kazakhstan, about 1,000 kilometers, 620 miles, away. Quebec Blackout, 1989. In March 1989, a solar storm caused a power blackout in Quebec, Canada, that lasted for 9 hours. The storm produced an EMP that induced currents in the power grid, causing transformers to fail and leading to the blackout. These examples illustrate the potential impact of EMPs on electronic systems and infrastructure. It's worth noting that while the above examples are well documented, many other smaller-scale EMP events have likely occurred throughout history without being recorded or recognized as such. Having a backup plan for communication is crucial in the event of an EMP or any other disaster that disrupts electronic communications. An EMP can potentially damage or destroy electronic devices, including cell phones, landline phones, and radios, leaving you without a means of communication. To prepare for such an event, it's important to have alternative methods of communication that don't rely on electronic devices. Some options include portable radios with hand-cranked generators. These radios don't require batteries or electricity to operate. Instead, you can generate power by cranking a handle on the radio. This can provide you with a reliable means of communication even in the absence of electricity or batteries. Satellite phones. Satellite phones use orbiting satellites to transmit calls and messages, making them less vulnerable to disruptions in ground-based communications infrastructure. Satellite phones can work even in remote or isolated areas where there is no cell phone coverage. Ham radios. Ham radios are a type of two-way radio that can be used for communication over long distances. They are often used by emergency responders, and many communities have ham radio clubs that can provide training and support for amateur radio operators. Messenger apps with offline functionality. Some messaging apps, such as Signal and WhatsApp, offer offline functionality that allows you to send messages even when you don't have an internet connection. This can be useful in the event of a temporary disruption to electronic communications. It's important to note that even with backup communication plans, it may be necessary to use a combination of different methods to ensure reliable communication. For example, you may need to use a satellite phone to communicate with someone in a remote area, and then switch to a hand-cranked radio to communicate with someone nearby. By having a backup plan and the necessary equipment, you can help ensure that you have a means of communication in the event of an EMP or other emergency.